we're very fortunate to have listed a couple of companies in the last 6 or 7 months, one on Altex, one on the main board. The first one was Afine Investments. They focused on property entities that have leases in the petrol sector. So they listed because they saw an opportunity to be able to consolidate the industry. There was no specialized REIT that focused on property or fuel stations. They listed by introduction. They didn't do a capital raise, but their listing has really assisted them in that they've done an acquisition since listing probably about 2 months ago. And they mainly used shares for the acquisition of those 2 additional properties. The second listing was in March of this year. It's called a REIT Prop. The owners there have gone through a very, very torrid time in COVID, having 3 hotel properties in Cape Town. Their operations had been shut down. They'd had a couple of their hotels with Holiday Inn and the Best Western. They had to cancel their operator licenses and they had to really reinvent their business because their assets had become liabilities. So they managed to secure some tenants. So they became property owners where they were leasing out the assets. And we approached the JSE back in 2021 to see if we could list a pure leasehold listing. And after a bit of toing and froing, we got permission to go ahead. And then they listed in March of this year. They wanted to list really just to be able to, take advantage of a new business model and to be able to assist other property owners who found themselves in a very, very difficult position by sourcing really good tenants, entering into long-term leases, and then bringing a REIT listing to the market that has no debt. Also doesn't have maintenance costs, so it ends up being a win-win-win situation. And it's really just changed the perspective of the business and the owners. They were able to place 20% of their shares, or 21%, in order to reduce some of their own debt. And they just see it as an excellent business model, going forward, which they wouldn't have been able to do in the unlisted environment.
I think it's probably important to say right up front that success obviously means different things to different people. But if I think about the 7 IPOs that we've brought to market as Standard Bank in the last 5 or 6 years, I think the one that does deserve mention is Dis-Chem. Dis-Chem was successful on a number of levels. It achieved the shareholders' ambitions to realise liquidity from a business that they'd built up over the prior 40 years or so. It created a platform for them to attract and retain talent through share incentive schemes. And it gave them an ability to accelerate the growth of the business going forward. I think on top of that, it was an IPO that attracted a huge amount of demand from a global investor base. It was able to achieve an attractive valuation upon IPO. We managed to price Dis-Chem at a premium to Clicks. But perhaps most importantly, it also delivered returns for shareholders, those that invested in the IPO. And that's critical as we think about the long-term development of the capital markets, because investors need to be encouraged by making a return on the capital that they invest. If I think about why Dis-Chem was so successful, I think there's probably 2 factors, which typically the most important factors that investors think about when choosing to invest in an IPO. First of all, the company had a very robust business model, a low-risk, high-growth business that really was primed to deliver returns for shareholders over the long term. And importantly, it had an outstanding management team, driven by the founder shareholders, but also a broad and deep bench of senior management that were trusted to deliver the strategy and ultimately, therefore, deliver returns to shareholders.